Test.
Well, good evening, and welcome to Common Cause, North Carolina. I'm glad you're all here tonight. My name is Ian Cowie. I hold the distinguished, I'm a member of this church, and I happen to be the board president, but I don't know if that makes any difference or not. I'm so glad that you are here tonight. We are very thrilled that this group called Common Cause reached out to us many months ago and said, we want to meet here because you have wonderful facilities and we can get a crowd together, and this is what we've done tonight. This is one of a series that they have been doing across the state, and so it's an honor and a privilege that they are here tonight. They were in Henderson County last night and had a rousing crowd. The sheriff had to come out and arrest many people. Oh, I guess, no, I shouldn't say that, should I? No, okay. Oh, gosh, yeah, that's right. Now, I talked to I had correspondence with the president of that UU congregation today, and she said it was a wonderful experience. So thank you all for being here. Housekeeping, very simple. We got restrooms down there. We got restrooms over there. The doors stay open. So if you get hungry, you get some more to eat. There's drink out there, too. This is a very, what should I say, loose outfit, meaning we want you to talk tonight. And I'm not sure all what's going to go on tonight, but I'm excited about this whole thing because this is very, very important to all of us here on what's going on in the state legislature right now. And your voices need to be heard. They need to be heard tonight. So at that point, I'm going to stop and turn the whole thing over to this young man here, Gino, and he's going to take it away from there. Sir.
You did a great job. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Good to go. Good to go. Hello. I think I have it on. I am not very good at technology. Hello. There we go. Good evening. How y'all doing? Good. My name is Gino Nuzalillo. I work at Common Cause North Carolina. We are very excited to be all the way out here with you in Brevard tonight. Before we get started, I want to also introduce my colleagues here. As you can tell, we all work at Common Cause because we all outfit coordinated this morning to be here. Bob Phillips, Sept Rodriguez, and Sailor Jones. So make sure y'all wave to the nice folks so they see you tonight. We're very excited to be with you here. As Ian was mentioning, this is stop number 10 in a statewide tour. And I know it sounds a little corny, but we call it the Unite North Carolina Tour because we believe, fundamentally, that everyone from Silva, where we'll be tomorrow night, to Wilmington, to Scotland Neck, to Greenville, to Carthage in the middle of the state, to Rockingham County, all basically agree on the things that matter to us. And we want to go around the state to not only talk about what's been happening in the state legislature on how it might affect those things, but also to hear from you. And to hear from you in a way that we can share with the lawmakers who represent this area so that they know and they can't say that the people who live here didn't show up to make their voices heard. Does that sound like something we can get behind? That's right. All right. Well, let's get started. And I want to start first by just acknowledging a couple of folks in the room. So first, if you are with the UU Church, and specifically RK and Ian and Catherine, Doug, want all of y'all to give a round of applause to them for helping make this possible tonight. Feel free to wave, take a bow. Also want to see, are there any members of the clergy who are here with us tonight? Please stand up. We'd like to recognize you as well, give you a round of applause, and thank you for being here. There you go. It's a very modest crowd, as y'all can tell. Anyone here who holds an elected office who's here tonight? There we go. Yes, thank you to a member of the school board for being here tonight. And then anybody else, if you consider yourself a community leader, maybe you're on a board of an organization or you lead an organization, a community group, if you're here tonight, we'd like you to raise your hand and we'd like to recognize you as well. Yeah. Give a round of applause to folks back here. Good to see you again, sir. Thank you for coming. A lot of this will probably sound very familiar to you. Thank you for being here. So that we got all those folks out of the way, I also want to recognize our friend Ben Williamson from Down Home, North Carolina, who came here from Asheville tonight. We're just really trying to get y'all's hands worn out with all the clapping. So, why are we here tonight? We're here to talk about the state legislature. And we're here to talk to you about what's been happening in the state legislature, but primarily, we are here to hear what you have to say and what you think and the questions you have about what's happening in the state legislature. Now, you won't have to start talking yet. We give a little bit of buffer so folks can work the courage up. But just know that we want to spend a huge portion of the night hearing what you have to say. Our hope and our goal is to not only have everyone else in the room hear what you think, but to share this with Senator Kevin Corbin and Representative Mike Clampett, who represent this area in the state legislature. Now, of course, as you look around, you may not see them here tonight, but that does not mean they're not going to hear what you have to say. That is our promise to you, okay? But before we get started, I want to ask a couple key questions to just kind of lay the baseline for who we are in this room. So I'm going to ask a question, and if you agree with me, I want you to raise your hand, okay? So I want you to raise your hand first if you believe and you want clean air to breathe and safe water to drink. All right. Some people already kind of know what I'm doing. Beautiful. I want you to raise your hand if you want good, accessible health care. All right. Not a single person doesn't want to see a doctor. That's great. I want you to raise your hand if you want good, well-funded public schools for your kids. That's right. Absolutely. I want you to raise your hand, finally, if you believe that you should have a genuine say in your government and the course of your life and representatives who give a damn about you. All right. Every single person raised their hand. And I want to make clear, and as Mr. Edney will attest, Every single hand went up in Hendersonville last night, and in the 9 events that we did beforehand, every single person raised their hand on those questions, right? Because the basics are we want good schools, we want clean air, we want our tax dollars to come back into our community, and we want a true, genuine democracy. Now, we all agree on that. Hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of North Carolinians agree on that. So the question I want to ask you is, has that been the agenda coming out of the state legislature, from what you all know? No. Does anybody believe that that is the agenda? Which, if you do, please share. Okay. What are some of the things you have heard about that have come from Raleigh this year? Name a bill or name something you've heard about, maybe curious about.
Parental rights.
Parental rights. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Parental rights. What else?
For some parents.
That's right. Well, I'm going to come back to you later on. What else have you heard about? Yeah. Education. That's a big one. What else? Gerrymandering elections bill. Voter suppression. Medicaid expansion tied to that budget, which, Heba, that budget passed yet? No, we'll talk about it.
Unless I missed something today. I haven't looked today.
Well, then this is going to turn into a party real quick. What else? Anything else that you all have heard that's been on the agenda in Raleigh?
Women's rights.
Women's rights. So,
Trans rights.
trans rights. Say that again? Changes to the boards of elections. And making a lot of races, particularly out here in Western North Carolina, making races that were nonpartisan partisan.
Reducing the corporate tax to zero.
Oh, it's like there you go. It's like you slipped in $20. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, reducing the corporate income tax rate to 0, is that right?
Right, that's a goal.
Yes. And y'all, our friend from the Budget and Tax Center will tell you more about all of that in just a moment. So that's right, y'all have named a lot. And as we're going into this tonight, I want to just kind of talk about specifically a few of the bills that have passed, been proposed, or are on their way to passage through the General Assembly. The first one, that was one of the first bills passed in Raleigh this year when the session started about, what was it, 2 decades ago? No, sorry, January. It feels like it's been 2 decades. First bill is called HB 40. How many of you have heard of HB 40? Sailor has said a couple. This bill, if you're not familiar with it, you might be familiar with it now. This bill chills free speech. What it essentially says is if you are in a group of 3 or more people and you are protesting, you're protesting whatever you want to protest. Maybe you are part of the group that goes to Moral Mondays here in Brevard, and the local law enforcement or the district attorney deem that a riot has taken place or property damage has taken place, they can charge you with a felony. Basically what they call the anti-riot law. 3 people gathered can be potentially charged with a felony. Is that Jimmy Buck? There we go. Rest in peace. Yeah. Beautiful. I was like, we had a restaurant growing up. I grew up in Nebraska. Maybe I shouldn't say that in North Carolina crowd, but it sounds like a lot of y'all came also to North Carolina. But we had a Cheeseburger in Paradise restaurant, and so just been thinking about that a lot. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. HB 40, one of those key bills. Folks mentioned elections bills. How many of you have heard of SB 747? Lots of people. This was a bill that was known as the Omnibus Elections Law Changes. It's got a lot of provisions in it. If you're interested, some of it's in the booklets that we talked about. One of the key parts of that bill that we at Common Cause oppose and that I expect many folks across the state oppose reduced and eliminated, actually, the 3-day grace period for mail-in ballots. How many of you voted by mail in an election before? A good number of you. What this bill does under the guise of election integrity, and we feel like that's a solution in search of a problem, they've essentially removed the 3-day period of which your mail-in ballot can be accepted if you sent it in before Election Day. What that results in, and if it had been in place in the 2020 election, would have resulted in about 12,000 valid ballots cast and sent before Election Day being discounted and thrown out. This is a state where, cast your memory back to 2020, or maybe you don't want to, which I understand, where the race for the Chief Justice of the state Supreme Court in this state was decided by how many votes? 401. So imagine an election in which 10 or 12,000 votes are cast out. That's one of the big pieces, one of the big upshots of SB 747. Another bill that impacts our elections is SB 749. Raise your hand if you've heard of this bill. Good number of you. Now, this bill is going to sound really wonky on its face. This bill basically changes your local board of elections that run your elections here and your state board of elections and make them an even partisan split. Right now, usually the party that controls the governorship has a majority, right? So it sounds great, partisan split on all the boards. When was the last time that y'all saw any of the two parties agree on anything important? Absolutely not. And especially when it comes to access to the ballot box, few issues have become more polarized than that. So in a world in which SB 749 becomes law, what we are afraid of and what we say over and over, right, Saylor, is deadlock, deadlock, deadlock. And we know that running elections in North Carolina is a complicated business. Current executive director of the state board comes from right here in Transylvania County, Karen Brinson Bell. Well, this is Jeff's story now, but Karen Brinson Bell, who used to be the elections director here, and the upshot of having deadlock, deadlock, deadlock with the boards of elections is what we fear and the potential for basically the end of early voting as we know it. Under existing law, if a local board of elections is deadlocked on their plan for early voting, if the state board is deadlocked on a plan for early voting, the default is one early voting site for an entire county, open only largely during business hours, with one Saturday option. So that goes from 17 days to 13 days in one location. In a county like Mecklenburg, that has over 1 million people and enjoyed over 20 plus early voting sites in the 2020 election, would be reduced to this building. How many parking spots do you think can you count in this photo? Not enough. That is the right answer. I think it was about 50. And with some of it you can't see on this photo. Imagine 700,000 Mecklenburg County residents all trying to go to this site, not obviously all at once, but all trying to go to this site to vote. It not only creates chaos in the early voting period, but creates lines like we haven't seen them during election day. So we're concerned about this bill. Just yesterday, in the North Carolina General Assembly, they tried to ram through SB 749. And you want to know when they told us that they were going to consider this bill? Last Friday. What happened between Friday and yesterday? Labor Day weekend. So who's paying attention? I didn't want to be paying attention. I think I wept when I saw that they calendared because it was going to be a long weekend. And thankfully, enough people showed up, about 600 people who were Common Cause supporters, and enough people showed up in Raleigh and said, maybe slow down on this one, and maybe don't do it. Maybe hear from your constituents first, and thankfully they did. As this headline that was just posted yesterday tells you, they postponed a vote on this major bill because the kind of response to it has now caused disagreement among their caucus in the majority party. So one, don't ever say that, I don't want to hear anyone ever say that people showing up doesn't stop some of this bad stuff from happening, but those are some of the elections bills. People mentioned as well, and I'm excited to hear from folks talking about it tonight, a set of bills called the Slate of Hate. 4 bills that primarily and predominantly target queer children, LGBTQ plus children, and trans children in this state, either preventing them from playing in the sports that they choose to do so, or getting in the way of how their parents choose to raise them. The Slate of Hate bills, all passed, vetoed by Governor Cooper, and overridden, and therefore forced into law. People mentioned SB 20, which bans abortion in North Carolina after 12 weeks. People also mentioned public education. The name of the bill number right now escapes me, but we know that there's a current bill and a couple different bills that the General Assembly is considering that could siphon up to $200 million every year from traditional public schools to charter schools that don't necessarily have to accept all North Carolina students and don't have the same oversight. All of you raised your hands about wanting better public education, and I would be curious if anyone here thinks that our schools are already funded well. And if you do, I would love to hear from you, but but that's an additional $200 million every year. And there's one other piece, and my friend Heba is going to talk to you more about the budget, but this stat always stands out to us. I think, and Heba, correct me if I'm wrong, we have the state budget. That's currently the biggest thing probably being considered. I'm sure all of y'all have heard about casinos at this point, one way or another. But one of the key pieces of that is a tax plan, at least that the Senate's proposing, that Heba will give you the details about, that threaten to deprive us of about $7.6 billion in revenue each year. Is that right, Heba? Now, $7.6 billion. I want you to guess how much it would cost to end hunger in North Carolina every year, to make sure no one of our 11 million residents in this state go hungry. How much do you think that costs? Someone guess. $1 billion. Got another guess? 20 million. If I remember right from the Budget and Tax Center's analysis, it would cost the state of North Carolina about $770 million every year to end hunger in this state. So think about that. A state budget that deprives us of $7.6 billion in revenue, a fraction of that to end hunger in this state, among many other priorities that we have. But of course, they're calling folks back to Raleigh to talk about casinos and putting a casino in place without any public input or hearings or things like that. So we go through all that. I know it's a lot to talk about, and I'm sure many of you are also thinking about things that I didn't mention. But just to give a sense of, we all broadly agree on what unites us more than divides us, and what's happened in the General Assembly may not be the kinds of things that are best for our community. And we believe it's important that as many North Carolinians know as possible about the kind of agenda that has been passed this year. So I'm going to take a step back for a moment because no one needs to hear me talk this much. And I want to introduce you to our friend Heba Atwa at the North Carolina Budget and Tax Center, who's going to tell you a little bit more about the state budget, which is one of the most important things that's going to come out of Raleigh this year. So Heba, take it away.
Thanks so much, Gino. Hi, my name is Heba Atwa, and as Gino mentioned, I'm from the North Carolina Budget and Tax Center. So can you hear me now? Is that better? Okay. So we are a nonpartisan, nonprofit 501c3, and our job is to advocate for an equitable tax code and connect you and people like you and communities like yours to the state budget. So let me ask you, how many of you all, and I know that taxes and budgets are generally quite dry for folks. Not everyone is as passionate about the state tax code as I am. I recognize that, but bear with me. So I want to ask you all, how many of you have voted in North Carolina? Gone to a public institution? Gone to a state park? Driven on a state road? So you're interacting with the state budget every time you do those things. And it's really time, it's crucial that we start paying attention to the state budget for a variety of reasons, but I'm going to talk about a few tonight specifically. So first I'm going to talk about the budget process. So over the past several years, members of the General Assembly, especially those in powerful leadership positions, I should be clear, have been making moves to obscure the budget process from public view. And one example of that is at the Budget and Tax Center several years ago, we had weeks to do budget analysis or analysis on any proposal. Now we have maybe 48 hours. When lawmakers used to have a lot more time to suggest amendments. Now they have just hours. And even more and more lawmakers who are not in positions of power and are not on powerful committees are even having a real say in the budget process. So as this goes on, can I ask, who's my friend who mentioned the corporate income tax rate? Thank you so much. Maybe you need to come up here and talk to us about Okay, well, so first of all, I'm so impressed that you didn't just say the corporate income tax, you said the corporate income tax rate. So while they are obscuring the budget from public view for several years, they are simultaneously enacting tax cuts that disproportionately benefit the already wealthy, and as my friend mentioned, eliminate the corporate income tax and rate. And as my friend Gino mentioned, the Senate proposal, of course, we don't have a final budget, but the Senate proposal this biennial budget session could leave us with almost $8 billion, $7.6 billion less to do the things that we need to do in our state. So instead of fully funding Leandro, who's familiar with Leandro, so meeting our constitutional mandate to provide a sound basic education for every child in this state. So instead of achieving that mandate, we're cutting taxes that benefit the already wealthy and eliminating the corporate income tax. Instead of ensuring that our elections are adequately funded, we're cutting taxes that benefit the already wealthy disproportionately and eliminate the corporate income tax. So I would love for you to join us at the Budget and Tax Center in considering these issues, and we would love to give you the tools that you need to advocate for a state budget that addresses the needs of your community. So we put together a little video. We're actually quite angry about these things, but we put together a light-hearted video for you. So if we could show that.
North Carolina is a beautiful state. It has some of the prettiest spots in the entire US of A. But what really makes North Carolina great is all the folks who live here. Sometimes people take our hospitality as an invitation to get rich off our labor.
What are you talking about? You sitting there lapping up all the cream. I'm going to send you to the principal's office.
You're not fostering a caring environment. You're building a lot of resentment here.
The average or the median PE on those stocks is actually down year to date because of the valuations gotten expensive, and that's why you
Help us, please.
You were really sitting here not trying to help.
Just wait till Twitter gets a load of this.
Around here, everyone contributes, or this boat won't float. We might argue about basketball and barbecue, but black, white, and brown, we all agree wealthy corporations have to pay what they owe in taxes just like us. It's time to join together and demand our leaders make corporations pay what they owe in taxes.
Is there Wi-Fi?
So we have some materials for you outside to connect with us. There's a QR code, and it takes you somewhere, I don't know, that where you can access a lot of the research and analysis we've done. And if I can just leave you with a couple things, we had some questions last night. Folks said, but wait a minute, don't we have a budget surplus? And I got to say, no, we don't. And in the words of one of our lawmakers who votes in a way that indicates that they really do care about us, she says, we don't have a surplus, we have unpaid bills. So if I can leave you with the understanding that we have been underfunding the public services and programs that our state needs to thrive for years, that's truly important. So thank you so much.
All right, y'all warmed up? This is part we're going to hear from you. I want to thank y'all for going through it with us, this part. I've just got a few kind of guidelines for this portion. So this is a town hall, and for the rest of the time that we have you here tonight, we're going to get you out of here by 8 o'clock, I promise. I would keep you all night, but Sailor Jones said I can't do that. So we want to hear from as many of you as possible. We are asking folks to, in the 2 minutes that they have, just because we want to make sure everyone's got enough time. Lisette, would you like to? Lisette is your timekeeper. Lisette, will you? Lisette's got a handy-dandy clipboard for you that will help you stay on time so everyone gets a chance to speak. Our only basic guideline is Common Cause is a nonpartisan organization. We side with no one but the people. So we ask that while, of course, you can always state the facts about things that have taken place, that we focus here on people and issues and our experiences, remain nonpartisan as best we can. We also ask that in addition to the 2 minutes, that you think through a little bit. We've got a couple of prompts that we always share about what you would want the state lawmakers who represent you to know about what you think, about what you care about. I know they're not here, but I promise you, we will make sure that they know what you have to say. Whether it has to be video or email or showing up in Raleigh, which we love to do, or carrier pigeon, we will make sure it happens. But we also want to hear a little bit about your response to another question, which is, what do you want for the future of North Carolina? A lot of times we spend a lot of time talking about the things we are against. And that is well and good. We should be clear about that, but we don't spend enough time talking about what we want for the future and for those who come after us. So we also would love to hear from you if you choose to speak about that. Final thing, you've got on your chairs a couple of different cards. Sailor Jones, he loves the gray magic box of mystery that you see here. There is a couple different things for you to fill out if you are so inclined. One asks you that same question about what you want for the future of North Carolina. Our hope is that we will be able to combine your words with those as far away as Wilmington and a kind of mosaic of our state. We also have a couple questions there that ask you about the issues you're most concerned about. Another part of this tour is to understand what is at the top of North Carolinians' agenda, if not lawmakers' agenda. Finally, you've got an index card there. If you have got questions, you are more than welcome to come and speak and ask those questions. But if there are also questions that you are interested in us following up with you after the event, write them on that index card, find Sailor Jones, he'll get them in the gray magic box of mystery. All sound good? We all ready to go? All right. Sounds good. That sounds good. I will take that as a yes. So what we're going to start with, we got a couple folks who signed up and said they were interested in speaking when they came in here. We'll start with them first, and then after that we'll open it up and ask folks to raise their hands. Do not be shy. As Mr. Ian said when we started this is a time to hear what you've got to say, and we're here to listen to you for the rest of the time. So the first person that I've got who is speaking, and it looks like RK's got the microphone, so we'll bring the microphone to you, is Susan Leffler. Do I have that right? did I hear a big surprise? Hey, oh, look at it's like we all planned it out. And can we get a round of applause? It is very hard to go first, so I want to give a round of applause to you. And please make sure to introduce yourself, my friend.
Mr. James Michael Clampett was constantly present in this county when he was running for election a year ago. He was at school board meetings and county commission meetings telling us we could call him anytime he wanted to hear from his constituents. I have not seen nor heard from him since. Among many questions I want him to tell us is how much federal money our state has forfeited because the legislature tied Medicaid expansion to the budget and dragged their feet past the September 1st deadline. 2, I'm outraged by the racist attack on Justice Anita Earls. How dare the Supreme Court try to threaten her for speaking about obvious inequities in our judicial system? She is a brilliant jurist of the utmost integrity. 3, partisan gerrymandering must be stopped. What recourse do North Carolina citizens have? 4, we need rank order primaries in order to prevent irresponsible, ignorant people from running for office. 5, it is unconstitutional for the government to interfere in the personal medical decisions of half its citizens. The 14th Amendment guarantees every person equal protection under the law. Women are being deprived of the right to make personal health care decisions, thus putting their lives at risk. Caregivers in hospitals are living with the threat of lawsuits if they save a woman's life before she bleeds out in the parking lot. Men are not the targets of these legislative attacks on individual rights. 6, gun safety laws and laws to protect the environment are not a luxury. They are a life-preserving necessity. Gun violence is the leading cause of death for America's children. The ravages of climate change threaten all of us. 7, free public education and a free press are foundational necessities in a democracy. A country cannot thrive without an informed voting public, a population that respects facts of science and history, and that has respect for knowledge, education, and of what constitutes the common good.
Amen.
Well, one, thank you, and also, ma'am, if you want to do the rest of the event for me, I think you earned it. So thank you very much. Whew. Sorry, you got to take that in for a moment. That was well done, my friend. The next person that we have who signed up as they came in tonight is Mr. Wayne Clark. Gotcha. Oh, we had a good conversation at the beginning. I'm excited for this.
Susan, I just got to say that your questions were, I mean, you almost leave me with nothing to say, but I will say that they, what?
Just a little bit closer to the microphone. Perfect.
Better?
Hold it
Okay.
like this, Wayne.
But, you know, they were almost as difficult, tough questions as your father-in-law used to ask me when I was a student in graduate school at Chapel Hill. The rules of the game have changed. I've been working with Common Cause since the early 80s in Florida. We're doing public policy work at the law school at FSU. It's now the Leroy Collins Center for Public Policy. But we have not changed. Common Cause has not changed. We are operating as if the rules had not changed, when in fact people are progressives, people who look forward and really believe in the future of this country, are up against a neo-fascist GOP. And if that's partisan, then forgive me, but I must say that we can't sleepwalk through this. We can't play by the rules, the old rules in this. We have to adapt our approach to public policy and every other thing that has a political implication or ramification to the new reality. And the new reality is neo-fascism. With a little lagniappe thrown in that you might call white supremacy. That's what we're up against, folks. And you know, we can't be just another lobbying group. We definitely can't be just another liberal lobbying group. Liberals have proved time and time again how ineffectual and feckless their approach to public policy can be. They are not equipped to go up against the Republican Party. You can look at anything that's going on today in state after state after state, and the progressive wing, the liberal wing, not necessarily progressive, I would distinguish between the two. The liberal wing is, a lot of them are still playing by the old rules, and they're losing time after time after time. We have to wake up, and we have to get serious. You can talk about parallels between the 30s in Germany, and it's hard. Sometimes if you don't know what continent you're on or what country you're talking about, you confuse the two because they're so similar in so many ways. I mean, you mentioned the campaign against transgender and gay people, and that is classic neo-Nazi approach to human behavior. We have to change our approach. That would be my message. And I'm looking. I'm not entirely despondent. I'm seeing some hope, particularly among young people. Their agenda is more and more different from the mainstream of American politics. We have to get out of the middle of the road. If you're in the middle of the road, we get hit from both sides, both directions. And we've got to move over to the left, and we have to get serious about playing. It's no longer softball. You can't have one side playing hardball and the other side playing softball. We have to play some hardball. We're too nice. I said the other night somewhere, we're too nice. We're just too nice. That's my message, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clark. Well, I promise I will always be nice to y'all because I like you in this room. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for sharing that. I believe, folks, we have exhausted the initial folks who signed up beforehand, so now we are bringing it to open floor, and I hope you will not hesitate. I know it's hard to go after those first two because they had it down, but anybody interested in speaking next? Don't be shy. I love it. I always wait for that first hand to go up. Thank you. And please make sure to introduce yourself as well.
I'm Monica Driscoll. I didn't come prepared.
Please hold the mic like this.
Thank you. I'm Monica Driscoll, and I did not come prepared to speak, but I hardly let an opportunity go by, and I apologize. I made just about 4 quick notes about things I would like to find out. I hoped I would learn more about. Yeah. One of the things that bothers me a lot is the idea of having anybody stand over me when I vote. I just don't want anybody standing over my shoulder when I vote, ever. And I am a little disappointed in the turnout tonight, and I heard very little about this except through email. And I have an awful lot of friends that don't do email, don't have smartphones, don't have computers. So I don't know what the solution is. I'd like to help if there was a way. I do want to know what we can do to help these efforts, because you haven't mentioned a thing that I disagree with. And how we can appropriately change, some of the minds that are just so resistant. I like to think that I'm open-minded. I'm becoming less and less so. But I'd like, I guess, to know better how to interact with people for that purpose, having a discussion. And thank you for doing this.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, we got a couple questions there. The one is we're going to be coming back to Brevard, and I hope you'll be the first person I call after RK, because we have all these folks here in this room tonight. This isn't going to be the first or the last time. We're in a fight. That's right. We're in a fight in 2024, in 2026, in 2028. And we've started on this initial tour, but it's going to take repeated effort, and we're going to have to get creative with outreach next time. So I appreciate you mentioned that. The second piece, before I turn it over to Bob, I had you come up for a reason. The second piece is at the end of this, we'll talk with y'all a little bit about how we're going to be organizing after this and how we'll like to work together. So I promise that'll come. But you mentioned a little bit about the election bills and kind of not liking the idea of someone standing over you. This is Bob Phillips. I just wanted to give a little bit of an overview to kind of clarify what will be allowed under the new rules. So Bob, do you want to give a kind of brief overview about poll observers?
You did say brief. Right?
Well, I got to make sure I mention it. Yeah.
No, I definitely will. Well, let me first say again, thank you so much for being here. One of the hats I wear at Common Cause North Carolina is I lobby the North Carolina legislature. And I've kind of jokingly said with the staff, until they pass something we like, I won't get a haircut. So that's why I look a little unkempt, anyway, what you said regarding not wanting to have people standing over us when we vote. And that is something I think everybody, whether we're Republicans, Independents, or Democrats, we all want a positive voting experience for the voter. That's really what it's about. And we're seeing in this North Carolina General Assembly some proposals that essentially, I think, will not only make voting harder, but will make it less than a pleasant experience. And as you referenced, one of the bills that passed, and Gino, you mentioned it too, the governor has vetoed it, and we're waiting for the veto override, would empower the partisan poll observers that we have. Legally, there are partisan poll observers that are allowed in the precinct, and it's not a bad thing, but it allows them to have, I guess the language in the bill says, to move about. the voting enclosure when we are voting. The first proposal actually said you could stand within 5 feet of the voter. Imagine, I mean, you're voting and you have some stranger standing 5 feet away from you. No one wants that, and through a lot of belly aching and screaming, they did take that out. But what is still in the bill, or in the law, I should say, is that a partisan poll observer can stand close enough and has a right to hear a conversation that we, the voter, has with the poll worker. So, Saylor, you're a poll observer. Gino, you're a voter, and you all are talking, and I'm a partisan poll observer.
Maybe not that close.
You know, I might be getting closer than 5 feet, and that is actually, unfortunately, legal. So, Gino, you said you all are legitimately talking, so I'm not going to listen in. But this is what we are trying to stop, and I do not understand it. I guess I would say this. There's no good reason for these bad election bills to be proposed, because look what happened in 2020 in this pandemic election year. North Carolina had a record voter turnout. More people voted than we'd ever seen, percentage and in numbers, in 2020. All the kind of post-election examinations, no systemic, no widespread fraud, nothing. You know, what is it, a solution in search of a problem, or maybe I've got that backwards, but these proposals are nothing more than something that will make voting harder, as Gino mentioned, shut down early voting, intimidate voters. It's all bad. So, Gino, I know you said brief, and I went way too long, but again, thank you all for coming. Thank you, Gino.
And I appreciate the question. Yeah, thank you. And in the booklet that you all have in your chairs, there's a little bit of an outline of the changes that are coming from 747, along with some info about voter ID and all that good stuff. So that's in your booklets as well. Before I turn it over to Bob, I saw someone's hand go up who wanted to speak next. That was you? Yeah.
I would like to talk about this gentleman's words about we Democrats being too nice. And instead, I'd like to substitute the word complacent. I don't think we're too nice. I think that we rely on laws to take care of us, and then it's not our problem. Because we have a law in place that calls for fairness, where the Republicans don't have a problem with cheating. And so if our complacency and laziness and cowardice have us pulling back, I need a shot of vitamin B too. I think a lot of us do.
Thank you. Oh, we're cooking with gas now. Yes, you, and then we'll get to you, Mr. Edney. Thank you very much. I love the color green, by the way.
I just wanted to add one comment on that elections bill. Another portion of it has to do with the local board of elections, that they want to change it, that they would be named by the county commissioners. Which one, of course that's wrong because it's partisan politics would definitely come into play. And the other thing is, it is a conflict of interest. The election board are the ones that review the financial statements from the candidates. So they would be asking to review those financial statements from the people that have the right to fire them, to name them and hire them. So that's just totally wrong.
Thank you. And what was your name? Barb, thank you. And then I think Mr. Edney's next. But let me just say, I'm very glad you raised that. And in the initial version of SB 749, that county commissioner choosing was very much the case. Now that it's moved into the House, we believe that'll no longer be the case. They have removed that proportion. Now, of course, anything can change in the legislative process, but we feel safe that that part, at least, will not become part of the law if it passes. So that's worth clapping for.
I guess we need a man named Sam to speak.
I think everybody here knows me, but I'm Sam Edney. I have worked as hard as I can to get young folks involved. And I would hazard a guess that tonight there are more replacement parts here than there are young people. we do, Wayne, need to get young people involved. And I think it is incumbent upon those who are involved now to change our language. For one thing, who's going to pay the price for all these bad policies that Republicans are putting in place in North Carolina? Young people. Whether it's school funding, whether it's gun safety, whether it's environmental policy, and this General Assembly is 180 degrees out on the environment. So it is incumbent upon all of us to engage with young people and listen to young people. And I'm a terrible listener. My wife reminds me of that all the time. But we but we have to begin on a personal basis to engage with young folks and listen to them. Listen to them. So help me do that. We need the young people. I'm 73. My blinker's always on.
Thank you, sir. Well, if it makes you feel any better, I'm 25 and mine always on too. I never notice. Thank you very much for the both of you who spoke. Friends, we are cooking with gas now, and we've got time for more speakers. So especially if there's something that's sitting on your heart that you want to share with the group tonight, we very much would like to hear from you. So who would like to speak next? Yeah. I'll come around. There you go.
I too would like to address what Wayne brought up and to when he's talked about it's time to stop playing like we're cooperating. And I understand the principles of common cause, and I really value that. I think that there's a way where you can do it. If you ask people to be aware of our legislators, who is voting for what, and put out the numbers, I don't think that that would be against your policy. So I feel that that might help satisfy that as well as start getting real. Yeah. Oh, and I want to say I left a message for Mike Clampett today about Bill 749, how I opposed it to our representative. And within a few minutes, I got a text back, and it said, yes, I support the bill. So I don't think he read it or heard me. I mean, I emailed as well.
Thank you. We're going to send him that video.
And actually, Sailor, I want to keep you with the mic because there's two things that came up. One, our friend over here asked about talking with folks who we may disagree with, and I think no one's better at talking about that than Sailor Jones.
Honey, I talk to people who hate me all the time.
And if you want to comment on the voter report
No.
as well.
So back when I was a child and I started at Common Cause last year, the first thing we talked about was a voter report card. And I worked at Democracy, North Carolina before this. That's how we met, that's when Jesus wept. And after that, I was at SESJ with this young man. And now I'm at Common Cause. And the reason I am at Common Cause is because when I started at Common Cause was an age range of the staff between 20-something and 70-something. And what does North Carolina look like but the Common Cause staff? And I came to that organization knowing that we needed to be an organization that can not only be nonpartisan but hold power accountable. And this is that organization. And one of the first things we talked about was a voter report card. Because back when I was a child, Bob Phillips was still at the General Assembly, talking to people he disagrees with every single day, and having those relationships. And so we know of what we speak when we put out a report card that says exactly how people voted. And it will surprise you that not all Democrats voted with us this time around based on the issues that you said when we started. And so I think it's going to be very important that we have that voter report card and we provide those rides to the polls. And when you are sitting in that ride that we provide, if you have only one early voting site, which we are fighting to keep every early voting site we can, so you could look at a report card and see objectively how people voted on the issues you care about. The last thing I want to say about this, though, is it will shock no one, but it shocks everyone outside of North Carolina. The people in North Carolina vote to vote. We vote to vote. And what I mean by that is maybe in Wisconsin they vote to prevent an abortion ban. Maybe in the Great Lakes they vote for better climate. Maybe in Georgia they are voting for teachers. But when we survey people on this tour, they are voting for voting rights. And that comes from a state where when the wind blows, your election laws change. When there is a full moon, we lose our 3-day grace period for absentee voting. Okay? And you can't throw a stone without hitting a gerrymander in the great state of North Carolina. So there is no group of people who know better that we are voting for our very rights. They depend on it. But I am so fortunate to be in audiences with all of y'all, and I do say y'all, because y'all are the big town compared to where I grew up. For people in here who know what gerrymandering is and who wake up every morning there to fight it. And that is exactly what we have to do. So please, 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 we're going to come back to you in a month. We're going to do everything we can. I don't know if we have to knock on doors. I'm going to go with Emily to wind down later. We're going to tell some people about it. I don't know what we have to do to get people out. But we're going to get every human being we can out in Transylvania County. Maybe we will make it a Halloween thing. I hear that works here. But what I need for y'all to do, until we get that report card, okay? Because we're not done with the session yet. We don't know how this bread has been baked. I need for you to share these things, and they're online as well, with every single human being you can. Who's with me? Can I get an amen? I know where you go. Okay, and I need for you to share these things because until we know what the law is, we got voter ID, right? Which is going to impact how many parties don't have ID? All. Let's just do call and response. How many parties don't have ID? All. Okay? How many parties use same-day registration? All. How many voters are in impacted districts that are gerrymandered? All. How many people know a young person? All. I mean, it's going to get real simple now. So when people wonder, how do I speak to people in the great state of North Carolina? It's what? It's all. These election laws are not impacting Democrats. Okay? They're impacting who? All. Every single one of us. And that's especially true in Western North Carolina where people are dealing with the opioid crisis, are dealing with their water and airports being taken away, are dealing with the fact that they cannot elect candidates of their choice because of the districts that we live in. Who does this impact? All. And we have to make that clear to every single person we speak to. And if we can do that, that's the key. Amen?
Thank you, Stanley. Yeah, did you have a follow-up question? Yeah.
I'm confused about the status of the gerrymandering. I thought that was a done deal for North Carolina, but other states seem to be still processing it.
Great question. So, how many people have paid attention to the state Supreme Court? Raise your hand. All right. Last year we had a different state Supreme Court, right? This year we have a very different one. One of them, when he goes home for dinner at night, he just goes over to Jones Street to see his dad in the legislature, right? I'll leave you up to decide who that is. I couldn't possibly speak on it. But if you heard that, then yes. One of the state Supreme Court justices is Phil Berger Jr. His father is the most powerful Senate Republican, Phil Berger from Rockingham County. Now, before the current court and the current court's majority took place, there were 3 major voting rights cases in North Carolina. How many of you have heard of Holmes v. Moore? Yeah. How many of you have heard of Harper v. Hall? CSI v. Moore. How many of you heard about CSI? Not nearly as many. We got one, Sept. These 3 cases were crucial to the future of voting rights. The first was a victory, Holmes v. Moore. It struck down photo voter ID for a long time here in this state. Before that, I think the only time we'd had to vote with voter ID was the 2016 primary, so it had kept it off the books for a long time. The second was a case that Common Cause was a party to, which was a case that struck down partisan gerrymandering in North Carolina. February 2022, a historic victory at the state Supreme Court that hadn't happened before. And then at the same time in 2022, a lower court had found in the case of CSI v. Moore that it was unconstitutional to deny the 56,000 people in this state who had been released from prison their right to vote. Again, state where elections are decided by 400 votes or less, 56,000 people who had the right to vote restored. And for 276 days, from the case of CSI v. Moore, and about a year for Harper v. Hall and Holmes v. Moore, we enjoyed the greatest expansion of democracy that North Carolina had seen since 1965. Can I get a clap for that? I mean, I know that's not the case, but well, that's a major deal. And then the state Supreme Court flipped in November 2022. And in short order, right about in January after they took office, the legislature saw that the winds had changed, applied for those cases to be reheard, which doesn't happen unless there's been some major error in the law. The court, in lockstep with that legislature, granted the rehearings, and in April, late April, they reversed all of those cases. Partisan gerrymandering is now legal, voter ID is back in place, and 56,000 people who had the privilege of being able to vote, and not the privilege, the right to vote in 2022 have now lost it. That itself is a tragedy. It means that the lawmakers are going to come back in a month, and they are going to redraw every state legislative district, and they're going to redraw every congressional district. And that means, and this is part of what you'll be doing with us tonight as we leave, is we have two mandates. One, especially with the maps, we are going to have to make as much noise as we possibly can. Even if we do not end up winning, part of what we are doing is speaking truth to power, right? Yeah, absolutely. And so we are going to speak truth to power. We are going to be in Raleigh, and we're going to be communicating with you about these maps all around the state. But the second thing is, folks, and I know we may not be successful in it, but it means that in 2024, our mandate is to break the gerrymander. I know sometimes folks say we can't out-organize it. I know that sometimes they're nefarious with it. But we've got one key tool on our side. How many of you heard about what the U.S. Supreme Court did in Alabama? There you go. The U.S. Supreme Court preserved Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which prevents racial discrimination in redistricting. And in North Carolina, oftentimes, and this is just what the data is, folks' racial identification does overlap a lot, oftentimes, with their political interests. So there is a key protection against the worst of gerrymandering. And in a state that is growing so quickly, and growing so quickly with people who do broadly agree on all the things we talked about at the beginning, it's not impossible to elect candidates of our choice who give a damn about us. Maybe not in all parts of the state, but in the state as a whole, it is possible. That's what the data shows us. So, I want to ask you, first of all, when does the 2024 election start? Starts right now. And when does 2026 start? It starts right now. And when does 2028 start? Mr. Williamson, it starts right now. Because the current state Supreme Court that is anti-civil rights, what we call an anti-civil rights majority, and I want to make that clear because we want a pro-civil rights majority. Not one necessarily of any one party because we side with no one but the people, but a pro-civil rights majority. The current majority became into power through 3 elections: 2018, 2020, 2022. The next 3 elections could also switch the majority on the state Supreme Court. There's an election in 2024 for the state Supreme Court, in 2026, and in 2028. Depending on how those results go out, the majority can be different in another 3 election cycles. So it's not just about this group that's here in this room. This is just the beginning. And I know this isn't the first political event and community event that y'all have come to, but we are gearing up for that long haul, for that long fight. It's going to start this fall, and that starts in this room right now. It's going to continue for as long as we have to, right, Sailor, until I collapse into a puddle, which may be in 2 months, but we'll see. So those are the major court cases. We are dealing with partisan gerrymandering without the courts being able to intervene, which is where we are in North Carolina. It's just another day in Old Kakalaki, right? Folks, we have time for about 1 or 2 more speakers. Yes.
when I get discouraged, I'm reminded that we are in a pendulum swing. In the late 1800s and in the early 1800s, the notion that slavery could ever be ended was laughable. And yet, now we have a lot of stuff that's still hanging on, but the legal slavery was ended when enough people said no. And that gives me encouragement. And the other thing is, I think the longer I look at this, the more I think it goes back to fear by people who are white and male. That's the bottom line.
Thank you. What was your name, sir? Singer?
Dick.
Thank you, Dick. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I think about that all the time, too, of something that in 1865 or in 1861 was unimaginable. By 1865, the world had changed. So I appreciate you. As someone who studied Reconstruction history in school, I appreciate the historical nod. Folks, we have about, oh, yes. Oh, please go ahead. I've been waiting all
the
night for
microphone
this.
right here. You said enslavement, and I would say that North Carolina's minimum wage is enslavement because you can't escape it.
And RK, I may ask you, it sounds like you've got a good sense and a good knowledge about the state of poverty in this state. Would you be willing to just speak a little bit more to that?
I don't really know good facts. We're an employer. We try to do better here. We do a living wage for everybody. No adult works here for less than $15 an hour. It's just bad. And folks, when I was looking, I checked last night, and we still have a minimum wage for waitresses is $2.13 an hour. Mm-hmm. And that's outrageous. You're forcing people to tip to make sure somebody can take something home. So it's not right.
That's right. And those are all policies that can be addressed by our state legislature, can be addressed by the people who represent you right now. I mean, how many of y'all are taking a look around and seeing that the rent is too damn high? And maybe most of y'all own your homes as well, but the cost of housing, the cost of living is too damn high. I know that if for whatever reason Sailor Jones decided not to like me and fire me tomorrow, I wouldn't be able to pay my rent. Don't do that, Sailor, please. But it's a point to say that a lot of us, and for folks, you're talking about young folks, people who are 3 years out of college, nobody can afford to live in North Carolina anymore without struggling. And I don't know the stats off the top of my head as well, but I know that there are millions upon millions of North Carolinians who are low wealth, low income, or a couple paychecks away from disaster. So I appreciate you raising that
Yeah,
issue.
I should probably rephrase that, not slavery, but indentured servitude.
Thank you. Folks, we got a chance for one more speaker. Is there anyone who wants to close this out before we close this out tonight? Gotcha. Very good. Yeah, go ahead. There you go. All right. All right. So, how many of y'all want to work with Common Cause? Have we impressed you enough? I see Ben Williamson's hand up. I see RK's hand up. Slowly but surely, I see Kat. There we go. So, I want to tell y'all a few things. But first, I want to close with one more story, if you'll indulge me, okay? I want to say, again, to the question about how we talk to other North Carolinians, the second town hall that we did on this tour was in Carthage, North Carolina. How many of you have been in Carthage? One person? There, you were there. Not the one in North Africa, not the one that they salted. Another historical reference. Carthage, North Carolina, in Moore County. To paint the picture of this county, we had a couple of folks who showed up, and a good group who showed up, who were present at the insurrection on January 6th. This is that kind of it's a conservative county, and we had elected members of the school board who were there with us. And I want to tell you, there were some rowdy moments that we won't share here tonight, but there was 90-some people in that room in this small county, and it was late July. It was hot as hell. We didn't have enough chairs, and I was just worried that a fight was going to break out. And the thing that you noticed, every single person, now some people felt that And of course, some of us we don't agree with it, but felt that some books should be banned, right? And then you had folks who wanted to make all universities public, every opinion on the spectrum. And every single person who came, the school board members and the parents alike, agreed on one thing. Fund our public schools, don't give that money to charter schools who aren't as accountable to us, and make sure that every child in that county gets access to their right to a sound, basic education. I'm not making this up, right, Sailor? They may have disagreed about what should be taught, and that's a debate worth having, but they didn't disagree on the fundamental thing, that North Carolina built its reputation on good public schools, and that it is our fundamental obligation to make sure every kid gets that education, Republicans and Democrats alike. So what I would say, ma'am, to the question that you asked, is to remember what we did here at the very beginning. And even with a smaller crowd here tonight, you were joined by those who joined us at the first 9 town halls, that there is more that unites us than divides us. But there is a crop of elected officials who don't believe they have to answer to us. And that is who we are in opposition to. We, again, side with no one but the people. So I very much appreciate you being here tonight. We'll ask you to do a couple things as part of just kind of the ways that we're getting involved. First, if you have your smartphone, and I'll send you an email afterward. You broke the clicker? Okay. We ask you to take a scan of this QR code. It'll bring you right to a web page that gives you a very easy way, if you don't already have their contact info, to let Representative Clampett and Senator Corbin know that you oppose these bills. And maybe Representative Clampett will also leave you a nice voice message or text message about how he supports it. But the more people, especially in a county that matters more, like Transylvania, that needs to be heard. So this will just bring you to our general volunteers. So that one's a different one. And if you don't want to pull out your phone tonight, we'll also email it to you. But I also want to show, Sailor, can you go back? Okay. Sorry. We have so many QR codes. We're getting back to it. We'll send you these slides as well. So this is the first one. And then in a moment, we are going to show you, even though I think most of you know them very well, we're going to show you your lawmakers. And we're going to encourage you, if you feel comfortable to do so, to snap a pic of their contact information and tell them about the event they missed tonight. And tell them about what you heard, and tell them about what you care about. We're also going to ask you to consider inviting them to meet with you. I know that sounds like a big thing, and I know that they're probably not going to respond. But one of the most important things we've learned, and Bob Phillips will tell you this, walking through the halls of the General Assembly, Common Cause can beat down the door of these folks all day long. But if a group of folks from their county ask to meet with them over coffee, maybe over lunch, and maybe you get in contact with their legislative assistants, who are often the most powerful people in these offices, and you say, I'm a constituent, I'd like to meet with you. I'd like to meet with you, and I'd like to tell you about what I think. And to their credit, I mean, obviously Representative Clampett didn't listen to the message, but even when I emailed Representative Clampett, he did actually respond and decline to be here tonight. So I'm not telling you it's going to be successful, but I think it's worth it. And at the very least, even if they say nothing publicly, it reminds them that people are looking and watching and paying attention. And if nothing else, that's what all our elected officials need to be thinking about in the back of their mind, right, Sailor? So I want you to take a photo of that. We'll also send it to you and encourage you in a group to invite. Yes, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
We often contact them. Does their office do a tally of like for or against a bill?
Bob, do you know the answer to that question? When they get messages from constituents, do their offices do a tally of the for or against? From what I understand, legislative assistants will keep track of the calls.
They will, and we hope they do. And obviously, a phone call is much better than an email. And if you do talk to a legislative assistant, that's also a way to sometimes get your message across. These are people that they are, relying on. So yes.
Yes. Oh. So we appreciate y'all being with us here tonight, 7:57. I promise I wouldn't keep you after 8, but I just want to thank you because I know that as bleak as things look like in North Carolina, the reason we do this and we spend every night out on the road is because groups like this fill rooms like this, because folks like RK open up their space to us, and they do it all across the state. And there is a different future we're fighting for, and it starts with groups like this. So thank you for being here. I want you to get home safe. And we'll stick around. Make sure you get resources as well. Take as many as you want. Thank you. Yes. Oh, great. Yes. Thank you. So if you've got your cards, the gray magic box of mystery, I'll put it on the table out in the kitchen. Feel free to drop them in. And again, make liberal use of taking those resources if you want. We want you to have them. So thank you.
Are you going to or have you been in Buncombe County?
We're going to be in Asheville on October 11th.